All right. Buenos dias, buenas tardes, buenas noches, depending on where you're joining us. Today we have again one of your favorite guests, Tito, former Associate Justice Justice Carpio, Antonio Carpio, who we always look up to when it comes to issues concerning the West Philippine Sea and the broader South China Sea issue. Pero bago tayo pumunta dun, kasi Justice Carpio, thank you for joining us again.
Thank you, Richard, and thank you to our viewers for continuing to listen to us.
Of course, Justice. Just to be clear, I hope hindi mainggit yung mga iba dyan, katulad ni Ronald, kasi yung most viewed video na ko last month is our interview, hindi kay Ronald Llamas. So, sorry na lang sa 0.6% niya, di ba? Medyo mas malaki kay Justice Carpio. So looking forward to this conversation. Obviously, I want to talk a little bit about Vietnam, extended continental shelf, even Indonesia behind the scenes is a little bit pushing back because of development in Natuna Sea. So, na-vindicate na naman tayo, Justice, na hindi totoo na lahat ng ASEAN ay pro-China at tayo lang lumalaban. It's just a differences of approach. And China is a common problem for all of us. But before we go there, let me park that because next week, this will be the third State of the Nation address for President Marcos Jr. Obviously, a lot of drama ahead of it because ang issue dito is who is not showing up. And Sara Duterte made it very clear she's not showing up and she's making it look as if she doesn't even, we don't deserve even any explanation for that. No, parang feel lang niya yun yung mag-attend. And she says something about designated survivor, etc. How are we to interpret that? If it's not a bad joke, if it's not a joke, if it's serious, how? Because my understanding is that if she means it legally, she's already in the line of succession. So the only thing we can think about is the Netflix series about namatay lahat at nag-replace yung low-level cabinet. So, ano yun, sablay lang na bad joke yan? Or does she even know what she's doing, Justice?
Well, legally, she is already the designated successor under the Constitution because there is a succession provision in the Constitution, and she will succeed the president, and nobody else will succeed the president except the vice president, if the vice president is around. No? Now, what does she mean by designated survivor? Well, a designated survivor is you're in one place with the others, and the place is suffers a catastrophe, and you're the only one who survives, and you take over. But it's a very well, if he meant to say that he is already the successor, it's a poor choice of an analogy. I mean, it doesn't compute because you are already the designated successor, and that cannot be changed by anyone. That's in the Constitution. So I really don't know what she was thinking about when she said that she is the designated successor,
Right.
because that connotes something catastrophic will happen.
Yeah, speaking about that, Justice, there are two things I want to ask you on this because you're also from Davao. Sorry, I keep on bringing that back because people know you as a legal luminary, but you're also some person who understands domestic politics, particularly in Davao, very well. Some people are just saying this just shows Sara doesn't have what her father has because her father has this brand of disruptive politics. He makes jokes, sometimes bad jokes, but in a way they still make sense. Diba? They're kind of entertaining. They tick off people. But Sara keeps on making, marami siyang ekbang na it doesn't make sense. And then she doesn't have wit. Hindi niya ma-explain. I mean, like Digong, di ba? He has 10 ways of doing the same thing. She seems to lack the magic of the father, right? Because the father would get away with a bad joke like that, right? Sabi niya, nagpaloko na naman, naniwala naman kayo. But she doesn't have that. She say, oh, you don't deserve an explanation. Ganun lang. Parang napikon pa siya, di ba?
Yeah, the usual excuse of President Duterte was it's just a joke, and even the last thing that the thing that he said recently, as Panelo said, it was just a joke.
I mean, tayo pang pinapagalitan for taking it seriously. Yeah.
Sara has not used that excuse yet.
But she didn't make sense. So sabi niya, it's not a joke, it's not serious. So what category of statement it is? I mean, it's a conceptual confusion. Kung hindi serious, hindi joke. Is there a third category we don't know about, Justice Carpio?
We don't know because she doesn't want to explain. And
She doesn't want to explain too. I mean, what the heck is going on? Kaya sinasabi ko, if Sarah doesn't have yung wit ng father niya, yung, or, you know, di ba, some would say, you know, I mean, unabashedness, or for the lack of better term, kapalmoks, di ba? Don't do it. Kasi last time, di ba sabi niya, 3 Duterte yung ipapatakbo nila. Ang pinakatumawa doon, yung sarili niyang tatay. Ano kalokohan na sinasabi na tatlo kaming tatakbo? Ano yan? Ano yan?
yeah,
Sarsuel.
it's something, uh, it's very strange. It started with Duterte. Before, if a politician, national politician, would say something like that three of us are running, and then it's disowned by the three. So, I mean, there will be a lot of criticism, but here people just don't mind anymore. It doesn't hurt
Desensitized.
them. It doesn't hurt them. So they're being held to a different standard. Maybe because the people say, "Oh, that's how they are." So maybe they people have a very low expectation of uh, of how they conduct themselves. So if they do some abubu or something grotesque, they will easily be forgiven.
Yeah, I mean, our brand is crisis, right? Yun yung disruptive politics style nila, di ba? Like, and they get away with it. But sinasabi ko, Digong can get away with it because he's funny, he's witty, right? I mean, I don't agree with him many times, but he's funny. Even si Baste minsan nakakuha niya, but I just feel Sara doesn't have it. But having said that, Sara still has very high approval rating. She still has the highest approval rating of any top government official base sa latest Pulse Asia survey. How do we explain that?
I cannot explain it. It's
Let's just not explain it. Baka sasakit ng ulo natin. Um, now, Justice, I wanted to also talk about this issue kasi the reason why a lot of people felt it's a very bad joke is, especially after the assassination attempt on Trump, who just, missed it by millisecond, a bullet through his brain. Some would say the Arroyo doctrine or Arroyo precedence, right? That if you are the vice president and take over before the third Sona or something like that, you can run again in the next presidential cycle, right? That's why Arroyo was able to stay for almost a decade, right, in power. Can you explain that to us? What was the Arroyo precedence? Because a lot of rumor was, if you're gonna take over from BBM, you'd rather do it before his third Sona para makatakbo ka ulit ng 2020. Can you tell us a little bit about the legality, constitutionality of that?
well, it's in the Constitution that uh, a vice president who takes over before the start of the third year of the president uh, can run again. In other words, he or she can finish the 4 years, remaining 4 years, and run again. That's what happened to uh, Gloria,
Yung
GMA.
EDSA DOS, yeah.
Yeah.
Just to be technical about it, the the third year of BBM will start officially once he ends his Sona or once he starts his Sona?
It's June 30.
Okay. So pwede rin. Pwede rin humahabol just in case. I'm just saying, we're just watching everything carefully kasi may time pa. Meron ka pang, I mean, I know it sounds crazy, but politics is crazy nowadays. You never know, di ba? So, I'm sorry just for pushing on that, but I think it's important for people to know bakit ang daming conspiracy theories, ang daming, why everyone is edgy. Ang balita sa akin, I don't know if you have also confirmed that they doubled the security for Sona or something like that. Have you heard anything about that, Justice?
No, I haven't heard anything, but that's to be expected.
Medyo sasayang na naman yung taxpayers' money natin dahil sa mga bad jokes na yan. Tuloy nag-double tipre ang security. No? Now, let's transition to the issue of Pogo, Justice. We were having some communication the other night about the Pogo issue. What is your understanding of the latest situation? Parang fugitive na, de facto fugitive na si Go, di ba? What is going on there?
Well, she is technically not a fugitive because no case has been filed against her, no warrant of arrest has been issued. But she is wanted by the Senate because the Senate, I think, has issued a warrant of arrest. I'm not sure now. But a
Yeah, na-approve
fugitive is a
yata
technical.
ni Jesus Cadero yun. Oh.
Yeah, it's a technical term that means there's a warrant of arrest against you.
Pero 'di ba high risk ano siya person siya Hindi ba dapat may mga travel restrictions or scrutiny or monitoring?
Well, well, there is a way of getting a whole departure order even before the criminal case is filed, but the DOJ will have to file that in court also.
So hindi na process ng DOJ. I want to talk about this a bit just as before pivoting back to Pogo and Harry. Parang dumadami mga fugitives. We were just talking about Kipoloy getting away with things. Bantag is still there. Teves has still not been settled in back home. Parang dumadaming listahan. Bakit nakakatakas sa mga... Is DOJ sleeping on its job? Sorry to say it, but some people are wondering if DOJ is up to the task. Because halos walang high profile pang napin down eh. Dumadami lang yung listahan ng mga fugitives eh. What's going on?
Well, it's not the DOJ that will be enforcing the warrant of arrest. It's really the PNP and the NBI. So
So it's a DILG? So it's a DILG thing?
the ILG, PNP is part of the ILG, and it's the PNP, the police, that will serve the warrant of arrest, or it can be the NBI. And so that's why they've been replacing the police people, personnel in Davao City. And I think they've sent NBI agents there. But it's really sad because the that guy Bantag, but Bantag
Yeah.
has been a fugitive. That's a fugitive because there's a warrant of arrest against him. So he has been hiding for quite some time already.
2 taon na, almost 2 years, di ba? So
Yeah.
this is a crazy situation because how high profile it is. He comes actually from my region, Cordilleras and all. So, the connected dots and all that. Doesn't this reflect badly on BBM? Doesn't it make the Marcos administration look weak that this list of fugitives keeps on increasing, expanding? There's an enforcement problem. The DILG secretary might consider even running for Senate. So some are wondering if he's focused on his job or looking at the 12 placed dun sa slot ng administration. What's going on here?
Well, it doesn't look good for the PNP and the NBI because they cannot find these people with warrants of arrest, no, issued against them already, and so it just shows that these people have a lot of connection.
Which is a given, right? That's why you're expecting some exercise of political will and intervention dahil alam naman natin na maraming tentacles yan. Speaking of tentacles, of course, one suspicion is, and I think it's a reasonable speculation that si Alice Go is just a front for something much bigger, something more consequential. And it made sense for her not to show up and all because, the best she could hope for is to be state witness, diba? But that comes with tremendous amount of risks, no, including risk to her life and all of that. 1 month removed from yung explosion ng Alice Go controversy and all, what do we know, Justice CARPIO, and are you more worried for our national security in terms of infiltration potentially of very nefarious figures from China?
Well, Alice Go, I think, belongs to criminal syndicates in China. They are operating. Well, they say they are operating gaming or gambling activities here, but in China that's banned. So they're using their Pogo license as a cover only to do other illegal activities like fishing, internet scamming, human trafficking, sex trafficking, and so on. But these are, I think, they're more on criminal activities. But
And espionage.
the Chinese security agencies, all security agencies all over the world,
They
they
can
also
infiltrate.
make use of
Yeah.
criminal syndicates.
As a
And
front.
so, yeah, they can do the job of the security agencies when needed, no? So that makes them also a threat to our national security, aside from a threat to our peace and order.
And Justice, do you think there's a serious move towards some counter-influence legislation or something along those lines? I keep on talking to people in the government, people outside the government about this. There's a lot of discussion, but do you think there's any concrete move, or have you made any proposal? Anong dapat gawin natin similar to Australia and other democracies who have very strict counter-influence operations? Because I think the Alice Go controversy has exposed how porous our country is. It's so easy to even become a mayor if you're even if you're not Filipino and if you're potentially a syndicate person.
Well, I think there's a defect, or there's a gap in our registration of births. We allow late registration. So, and these are resolved by administrative officers. So my proposal is that if it's a late registration of live birth, uh, it should be done by another agency, like for example, the judiciary, but a simple procedure, not too expensive. Just like a small claims court. It's very simple, but it must be another agency as a check and balance, because
Oh,
we've seen that the civil registrar are the culprits here, really, because they are the gatekeepers. I mean, if 1,500 Chinese nationals, uh, Chinese people, suddenly file an application for late registration of birth, I mean, that's those are red flags already. So we have to resolve that problem, that defect in the system, by
loophole, no?
giving the authority
Loophole.
to another body. Yeah, so
It,
that there will be no inbreeding. No.
it's a gaping loophole. Do you think, Justice, there should be some heads rolling? I mean, you would imagine after all of this kapalpakan, all these years, fugitive list expanding, the Alice Go heads should be rolling, right? Parang walang
Yeah,
masyadong
they
alam ko
should file
na.
a case against that civil registrar as an example, because if he gets away with it, then there's no example on anyone. And also, uh, what we uh, in our letter to the president, we said uh, the rules of PAGCOR say that these offshore gaming operators uh, can operate only in a country that does not uh, prohibit gambling. In China, they ban all kinds of gambling. That has been repeatedly announced by the Chinese embassy. So there must be no Pogo license issued for China, for
Ipso
Chinese
facto.
operators, because we all know, it's public knowledge that a Pogo operator cannot be his website cannot be accessed from China, or the Chinese people are banned from accessing gaming or gambling websites abroad. So it's a no-brainer that they have to deny all these applications of Pogo, but they granted them. So there's something wrong with PAGCOR. I
Speaking of
mean,
something wrong with Paco, do you think something, I mean, ganito,
well, this happened during the time of Duterte. This the Pogo started during the time of Duterte.
yes, yes, Justice, but the current head of PACOR doesn't seem to be very uncomfortable. Do you get what I'm
Well,
saying? Right? That's the problem. Okay, of course, this is the legacy, but we're almost 3 years into BBM. I don't think that could be used as an excuse all the time. Because dahil
Well,
meron
we're giving him some time, because we pointed to
mm,
him that under your own rules, you should not be issuing licenses to these Chinese pogos, because very obvious, they cannot their websites cannot be accessed from China, or it's banned. It's illegal in China, so they should cancel all those licenses now. So we're just giving him time to straighten up.
speaking of time, some are suggesting a phased sequential ban of Pogo. Some are saying there's no way because they're all essentially compromised to begin with. You have to go boom right away and make all of them
Yeah. Well,
ban right away. Where do you stand on that, Justice?
there are some pogos theoretically that may be legal because their market is, let's say, a country that allows gambling or gaming.
Like
So
Macau? I don't know, like like
Well,
Macau.
I'm not sure, but in theory, there can be where gambling is allowed. So, what we are saying is that we're sure that in China, gambling is banned; it's illegal. So all these Chinese pogos should not be allowed to operate. Should be all their licenses should be revoked immediately. So, uh, if they do not do that, then it's clear that something's wrong there. I mean, they're not doing their job. They're violating their own rules. So we're just giving them time uh, to 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 discuss it and pass a resolution uh, recalling all these licenses. And there is one thing: since these Chinese pogos are banned, they cannot be accessed by Chinese from the mainland. So they do not conduct gaming or gambling operations for the Chinese in mainland China. They actually conduct here illegal activities like scamming, internet scamming, phishing, so human trafficking. So what they're doing here are all illegal criminal activities. That's why we cannot even phase them out, because if we phase them out, give them, let's say, 1 year, we will be allowing illegal activities for 1 year. It has to be totally stopped immediately. That's why I said that there is no. The moment we say we're giving you 6 months, that means we are saying you can do
Do
illegal
6 months
things for
illegal
6 months.
stuff. You can do and
Yeah.
diba, and parang sabi ng PAGCORP, as long as mag-register lang kayo, parang legal kayo or something like that. Like, forget about my torture chamber, forget about my nagbabayad ba ng buwis ito, forget about meron bang syndicate. I mean, it's becoming ridiculous na, no? And someone is, Senator Gatchalian said the other day, what you need here is from the very top, from President BBM, he has to make it clear, total ban. So what do you think is holding BBM back?
That's why, Richard, uh, our group, my classmates, Isambayan,
Open
all of the
letter,
rest, the
yeah.
UP alumni, we went directly to the president. This is very clear. This is against the law, against their own rules, and you're the man on top. I mean, this PAGCOR is under the office of the president. So we went directly to him. So I expect that in the Sona, he will say something.
Hopefully.
Otherwise he's turning a blind eye.
Yeah, he'll be an enabler. I mean, the buck stops with BBM. At the end of the day, for everything we can say about Digong, 3 years na si BBM, he has to like take responsibility for this. Parang he
Yeah,
can't just ping pong this between the
and
different branches of the state. Yeah.
because we have exposed it already, he cannot say that I didn't know about it. I mean, so many people have come out. It's all over the papers. So he has to say something in the Sona.
Right. It's honestly it's embarrassing. No, it reflects badly on the country. It looks like makes us look like a banana republic. I mean, if BBM wants to reintroduce the Philippines, as he put it, na go around the world, make us look like an investment destination, and then people get to know an illegal Chinese person can become a mayor in the Philippines. What the heck, diba? I mean, forget about rule of law, considering all the EJKs and everything else that is also happening behind the scenes. Now, Justice, what are you expecting in the Sona? What do you think should BBM do this time? Because if he's just gonna give the same papogi, macroeconomic indicators, mga charot-charot niya ng technocratic ek-ek na ganyan, I just don't think it will cut it. I think he has to do something special this Sona. Considering
Well,
everything team.
I'm suggesting two things, because first, he said that we have to do more than filing notes verbal, more than protests against China. So that means the next step is to go to arbitration. So I would like to hear him say that we are going to bring China to arbitration over the extended continental shelf off the coast of Palawan. Because remember, we filed our claim, extended continental shelf claim, and China opposed. And so it's right now for arbitration. So I hope he announces that. Second, I hope he says that all these pogos, that the Chinese pogos will be their licenses will be canceled. I hereby order the cancellation, and that's being decisive. And it's the only thing he can do, because it's so obvious that these are criminal syndicates operating in our country using the Pogo as a cover, the Pogo license. And the Chinese embassy has repeatedly said uh, gaming, gambling is illegal. Please uh, abolish cancel these licenses because we don't want them to operate in mainland China. And you know, we're telling China, you follow the rule of law in the South China Sea. They will tell us, follow the rule of law in our own country, in the mainland.
Yun nga, I mean, that's also the reason why I'm saying he has to come clean on ICC also. I mean, ICC is different case, but in a way, it's not also so different because it's about international rule of law, right?
Yes.
Do you think that do you think BBM has really a problem in terms of looking weak and indecisive? And then that he has to do something drastic on this, whether it's on the foreign policy issue, although he's slightly doing better there. But in general, right, do you think it's time for him to project some sort of strength and decisiveness? Not in a dictator way, but in a good, competent leader way.
Well, yes, I think because for this Pogo, I think everything is very clear. The facts and the law, that's very clear. And even China is asking him. Second, on the arbitration, uh, we have to respond uh, to the threats of China when they stopped our resupply last October 17 with the bladed weapons. We cannot just uh, let that go. There must be a punishment for China, and the best punishment is to bring China to an arbitration because that is what China dreads most. That they will be brought again to another tribunal because they know that they will lose again. So we cannot allow China to do that to us without any response.
Consequences, yeah.
Yeah,
Impunity. You cannot
it's like
encourage
it's
impunity.
like President Aquino the third, no? Pinoy. When China seized Scarborough Shoal in 2012, we did not send the Marines. We went legal. We went to an UNCLOS tribunal. That's what we should do now.
I want to focus on this before I go to operational issue, including itong latest joint patrol, joint RORE-ish situation. Before going to the operational tactical, I want to focus on this. I mean, I was with the Ambassador Malaya at The Hague the other week, you know, for my own engagements at The Hague around the arbitration case and all. And, you know, Ambassador Malaya was saying at the end of the day, you know, essentially, you know, the arc of history bends towards international justice when it comes to arbitration cases. It's not going to be tomorrow. It's not going to be 1 month from now. But eventually, even China has to abide because China has an interest in international rule of law. It's vulnerable itself. It has, you know, trade all around the world. It wants access to the North Pole. It wants access to. So if it mumbo jumbos its way, kakagat din siya later on. It's gonna blow back. It's gonna have a blowback for China. So in that sense, we see that a lot of our folks in the government also appreciate the importance of this arbitration case. Now, going back to this Justice, can you explain to us first what is this whole extended continental shelf issue that the DFA is pushing for? Vietnam is also pushing for an extended continental shelf. They already did once back in 2019, joint with Malaysia. Malaysia had another one in 2019 also. I sorry, 2009. There's another one in 2019 also by Malaysia. Just can you explain to our folks what is this continental shelf, extended continental shelf case issue, and why is China very sensitive, and what is the importance of us joining that? Because I remember during Arroyo, we did not join Vietnam and Malaysia, right, to keep things in an even keel with China, and we paid the price for that by being behind the curve.
Well, Richard, we have our exclusive economic zone that's 200 nautical miles, and the arbitral award said we have a full EEZ in the West Philippine Sea. But beyond the exclusive economic zone, we are still entitled to a maximum of 150 nautical miles. Maximum, it could be less, but we can claim a maximum of 150 nautical miles as extended continental shelf claim. Now, Vietnam is also entitled, Malaysia is also entitled, and there may be an overlap in that area. And the UNCLOS is a formula. If it's an overlap, it will be divided equally using an equitable solution principle. That's the cajon, no? Uh, so when uh, when Vietnam and Malaysia jointly filed that submission in 2019, I think, they invited us to join them, but we did not because we were studying whether it will affect our Sabah claim. Uh, but now we have filed, and Malaysia, of course, protested because they have to protest. Otherwise, they will lose their. They will be accepting our claim. It's a routine process to protest to preserve your claim. Vietnam just protested also. Now China protested also, but China is so far away. Uh, the farthest that a coastal state can claim 200 nautical mile plus 150 is 350 nautical miles. Beyond that, you cannot claim. Hainan is more than 350 nautical miles away from this area that we are claiming. That we are claiming, Vietnam is claiming, and also Malaysia is claiming. So China cannot join the party here. So my suggestion is let's bring China to arbitration. The Philippines can do that. We can also invite Vietnam or Malaysia, or we can include them also. But on the sole issue, whether China has a valid claim, is China within the 350 nautical miles? It's very easy to determine. It's just a matter of measurement. China cannot trace the 9-dash line again because that has been invalidated already. If they raise it, then they will get the same response from the tribunal. So, uh, so that's why I'm saying let's bring China to another arbitration. And Wu Shikon, he's the guru who convinced the Chinese communist leadership that the 9, now 10-dash line should not be a claim only of islands, but all the waters within the lines. Because the Kuomintang invented the 9-dash line, and it was just a claim to the islands, not a claim to the entire sea. It was Kushikon who convinced the Chinese communist leadership that it be a claim for the entire, everything within the 10-dash line. And he said recently that we have to stop the Philippines from filing another case because he said the first arbitral award has a negative impact on China that can never be erased. Therefore, let's stop the Philippines. So they dread another arbitration case, and we should give it to them. So that's my proposal, and that's a very strong action from the president, and it's all in accordance with law. We're not saying, okay, we will also arm our soldiers going that will be resupplying Sierra Madre. We'll give them also access and bladed weapons. No, we will go to the arbitral tribunal, The Hague, just like what President Pinoy did before. And the Chinese dread that more than they dread our bladed weapons. They dread that. For them, that's because they know they cannot win.
Yun yung superpower kasi natin eh. And that also exposes them for what they are. The defense minister of Singapore just the other day in Aspen Institute, he claimed that in his private conversations with his Chinese counterparts, they had said that China is not claiming all of the waters and features in the South China Sea, although this ran counter to their public pronouncement. So essentially what he's implying is that the Chinese will say one thing in their propaganda, but in reality, they're a little bit more flexible about the exact parameters of the 9-dash line, which they never also clarified to begin with. Does that mean there's a flexibility around this? Does this mean that if we push, eventually China will accept a more reasonable claim or boundaries in the area?
Well, if the rest of the world will not give in to China, because it has implications. If China can claim the entire South China Sea as their national territory, Russia will claim the Arctic Ocean, will claim the Azov Sea, and other countries will do the same. So that will mean the collapse of the rules-based international order under UNCLOS. So I don't think any of the naval powers in the West will agree to that. Not even Russia. Russia is not really supportive of China's claim to the entire South China Sea. So in the long run, China will be isolated here. And the way to isolate China is to pile up more arbitral awards against China, because the world will always rally behind a ruling of an international tribunal. So that's why Wushikon is so afraid of another arbitral award against China, because that will mean that
Yeah.
that will bury forever the nine dash line that the expansive interpretation that he made on the for the nine dash line.
Which is his conceptual baby in many sense. Justice, I want to ask last 2 points. This is very important, I think, because I want to transition into our ASEAN diplomacy. Because at the end of the day, ASEAN is going to be one of the ways whereby we can defend this, or at least reinforce our claims. One is the Sabah issue, because my understanding of the Sabah issue is this is like a taxi meter running, but the taxi is just waiting outside and no movement is happening. In a sense that I don't see us making any concrete move. Forget about the chances, visibility of reclaiming Sabah, but it's still a poison pill in a bilateral relationship in Malaysia, and it creates some sort of complications. I mean, next year Malaysia will be the ASEAN chair. There could be events in Sabah. I know that back in the day, I think 2015, when Malaysia was the ASEAN chair, we still went, even though some of the ASEAN events were in Sabah. But that Sabah thing is always going to be this irritant in our bilateral relationship, a kind of a gnawing and nagging feeling. Do you think we need some decisive resolution of that issue? Because Malaysia is an important partner on the South China Sea. If at the end of the day, as long as the Sabah issue, this taxi meter is running, it's going to affect our ability to work with Malaysia on other issues. Do you think we should just, I don't know, di ba may legal cases at Luxembourg recently, I don't know, $15 billion or whatever. That's unrealistic, but maybe we should push for a final resolution between the Kirams and Malaysia, maybe $1 billion, maybe $500 million, and close the case so that we can move forward. Or do you think that's politically and I don't know, morally unacceptable? I know this is a sensitive issue, but every time I talk to our Malaysian friend, yun ang inis nila sa atin eh, yung Sabah issue. And let's be realistic, I don't think we have any realistic chance of reclaiming it anytime soon.
Well, let me explain it this way.
Sige, boss.
When under the present international law, the colonies of colonial powers, and that includes British North Borneo, must be given the right. The people there must be given the right to self-determination. So, when we claimed it, the UN conducted actually a referendum. And in the referendum, the people there said we want to join Malaysia. Now we questioned that there was no free and informed consent. But there was we were the ones who requested for that referendum. The UN conducted the referendum, and the people decided to join Malaysia. So, but we questioned that there was no free and informed consent, because they were not allowed to discuss it fully. So, but if we press the issue, the most that we can get, assuming that we will win, the most that we can get is another referendum.
Which
Because
I
of that
don't think will go our
principle.
way. I mean, let's just be, you think people of Sabah want to join the Philippines? I think the people of Sabah want to be
That's
independent
what
from all of us.
that's
They
where
want
I'm
to vote for
going.
themselves. Exactly. So I
Yes.
just think this is ridiculous. We're
That's
not
where I'm
realistic
going.
about this. Yeah.
Assuming that we win, if we file an arbitration, we win, the award will say, okay, we'll follow the principle of international law, the right to self-determination. Let's hold another referendum. We can never win. And that is what is missing. The people don't know, our politicians don't understand that. They keep on saying, let's press on with the Sabah claim. I said, wait a minute. That means that, assuming Malaysia will agree, the most favorable ruling for us is another referendum, and we will be embarrassed again because the vote will be against us definitely. So I said, why can't we just put this in the back burner? Or let's find a way to peacefully settle this, where
What about a,
it
a
is
claim settlement
our,
between House of Kiram and Kuala Lumpur? Just one
yeah,
final payment, final, tapos na.
yeah, that's another one. Let there be a compensation, final payment, and everything, and that's it. Because if we follow international law, and I always follow international law, the most that we can get is another referendum, and there's no way we can win under the present circumstances.
Exactly. I mean, anyone who understands, they rather be on their own. They don't like Kuala Lumpur. The more they want like the Philippines, right? So that's why I'm saying it's a taximeter running and costing us because it's preventing us from developing an optimal relationship with Malaysia on other issues. And we know one reason Malaysia was supporting MILF and MNLF all these years was to bog us down. So we were paying a big cost for this kind of a, again, I hated when pro-China people use the Sabah issue to project charot, parang excuse me. Like, so you're saying, and pasok natin yung Sabah para kaaway natin Malaysia para hindi natin lapat. Diba? They do that, diba? Pansin mo, yung mga Duterte people, pro-China people, they always use the Sabah issue. Anong sinabi ni Pinoy kay Sabah? Anong sinabi ni BBM sa Sabah? Which is, Robin Hood Padilla keeps on bringing the Sabah issue and all of that. I mean, this is performative nonsense. This is performative
Yeah,
nonsense.
that's why I always tell them, uh, if you press the Sabah issue, assuming we win all the way, the award, the most that we will get is another referendum, another shot at the referendum, and we will be terribly uh,
Embarrassed.
uh, embarrassed.
Yeah, if not humiliated. Yeah, by the final, no one in his right mind would think that, people in Sabah would want to, would not want to go it on their own and forget about joining the Philippines, right? I really had to bring that up, Justice, because, we're transitioning to Malaysian chairmanship of ASEAN next year. It's very, very important. And of course, there's a troika, diba? The outgoing, the present, and the future, meaning Philippines, now Laos, and Malaysia eventually have to sit down and discuss what the heck is going to happen. The other issue is Gaza. I want to ask you on this, Justice Carpio. Philippines is quite different, right? I mean, everyone knows the basics of the case. I think our position is much closer to where Americans stand, or at least conservative Americans stand. Although I've been talking to Republicans, even in South Carolina and Georgia, they had different take on the Gaza issue. What I mean is this: if you go to Malaysia, you go to Brunei, even Thailand, forget about Indonesia, they feel very strongly about the Gaza issue. And they feel that the Gaza issue is exposing the hypocrisies of the West. It's exposing that the rules-based international order only applies if it's Ukraine or the West, but if it's Muslims and Palestine, it doesn't. And feeling the Philippines is a little bit outside the consensus in ASEAN or global South. And China is really weaponizing this issue para magpapogi sila. That's why I always say, wait, ano ulit ang ginawa ng China sa mga Uyghurs? Sa mga Muslims sila. But obviously, China is inaano niya, di ba? So what do you think is the healthy way forward? Because I've talked to our friends in DFA. One issue that is raised by some people who are very close to Anwar told me they took issue with us keep on emphasizing your right to self-defense. Sabi nila, well, Palestine, Gaza is like occupied territory. We're not talking about the war between two sovereign states. The occupiers have certain response. So essentially, they have had issues with our positioning on the Gaza conflict, which they feel is way outside the consensus of ASEAN or Global South country, and much more, I don't know, Republican, if not the U.S. administration position. What do you think about this? Because the Gaza issue, if it's a gulf that is also affecting our ability to work with ASEAN on the South China Sea issue. At least this is my understanding, Justice. You may disagree with me. You may feel we can compartmentalize, but I don't think we can compartmentalize. I think Gaza will be a central priority for Malaysia when they take over next year. And they'll use that over and over again to say China is not bad, West is evil.
Well, it's the of course, I'm for a Palestinian state. I mean, the U.S. is for a Palestinian state, and I think uh, it has to be a solution in that direction because once there's a Palestinian state, then that state assumes responsibility for Gaza. Right now, the PLO has no responsibility because they're not in control, and it's uh, uh, and the Hamas group, they've never held another election. So I think that has to be, if we concentrate on Gaza, we will never come to a acceptable compromise for everybody. I think the U.S. the world agree that there must be a Palestinian state. I think that should be the solution. And once there is a solution on that, Gaza will be resolved. It will just be part of the bigger solution. So I think if we keep on hammering on Gaza, it will be uh, the 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 anger of the moment. We have to look at the overall picture, and this will only be solved if there's a Palestinian state. And Israel was about to accept before a Palestinian state, and the U.S. cannot get out of that. They already said they are for a Palestinian state. The world is for a Palestinian state. Let's start with that because everybody is agreed. If we work for that Palestinian state, nobody can complain. I think we will get a better traction.
And just again, I know this is a sensitive issue, but this has to do with ASEAN relations, and I think this is very important for us to handle. What about the ICJ and ICC case regarding the conduct of war in Gaza? Where do you think the Philippines should stand on these issues?
Well, we should we should we should support the rule of law there. If it is a crime against humanity, it's a crime against humanity. If it's a war crime, it's a war crime. But I think that will exacerbate. Let us do something that everybody has agreed already, and that is a Palestinian state. So if we tell our Malaysian friends, okay, why don't you draft, let's come out with a position. We are for a Palestinian state. And that's one thing we all agree.
The thing is, because the Knesset of Israel recently, I think, passed a resolution opposing the two-state solution. So things are moving in a very different direction inside Israel nowadays with the rise of the right. So, you know, it's a very tricky situation, as we can see. So I expect some ASEAN countries to take a very tough stance against where Israel is going on this kind of issues. And I think that's where they feel the Philippines is not moving in the same direction, considering the historical relationship with Israel and, of course, our
Well,
alliance.
I would suggest that we make a counter proposal, a proposal that we push for a two-state solution. Everybody agrees. It's a proposal that nobody will object. Everybody will agree. And I think that will create the momentum if we do that.
Right. And then and in fairness to the FA, and of course I also talked to Secretary Manal among others, it's very clear the Philippines has voted in favor of Palestine in multiple resolutions over the past 6 months or so. So it's not like the Philippines, you know, has been biased in favor of one side or the other. I think we have taken a very balanced position. I also understand the emotions because may mga namatay na Pilipino nung nagkaroon ng terrorist attack no October 7. So violent attacks. I mean, for me, any attack on civilians is terrorism. You know, so I'm absolutely clear about this. This is not about taking sides. This is about opposing violations of international humanitarian law. Last point, Justice Carpio. Vietnam has riled up China. You know, again, like there are a lot of these makapili people saying, "Oh, see, Philippines lang ang pampagulo, tayo lang ang ano, troublemaker. Tignan mo ang bait ng Vietnam, tignan mo ang bait ng Indonesia." But if you check the news, once again, we're seeing both Indonesia and Vietnam are pushing back again because iritang-irita na naman sila sa ginagawa ng China. And Vietnam wants to push for its extended continental shelf. And Indonesia wants to make it sure that China can make no nonsensical claims over Natuna areas. Can you talk about that? Because we have to remind a lot of people na hindi totoo yung ASEAN na tayo lang lumalaban. Iba lang siguro, mas vocal lang tayo ngayon after 6 years of Duterte.
Yeah.
But all of us have headaches with China and we are fighting back in our own little ways.
Yeah, and I think we're coming to a common ground. The Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia, even Indonesia, but Indonesia is not involved in the overlapping external foreign shelf. So my proposal is, this is the opportune time for the three countries, Vietnam, Malaysia, and the Philippines, to gang up on China, because China is the outsider.
Tag team.
We really have an overlapping claim, more so with Vietnam. Malaysia may have a little overlapping claim, But the real outsider here, who doesn't have any valid reason to claim, is China. And we can bring China to arbitration and also include Malaysia and Vietnam, because they will state their position, and their position will be against China. The position of Vietnam will be against China, our position is against China, and the position of Malaysia is against China. So the three will have a common position against China. And that's how we can we can isolate China here.
So we're back in business. There is hope after all to work it. Kasi tayong dalawa, we have been covering this, in your case, even longer than me, but I've been writing on this issue for more than 10 years. Ang sabi ko, don't take a snapshot and say this is the situation. Look at the longitudinal situation, and everyone is resisting China. Hindi totoo na Filipinas lang lumalaban. So I think I'm glad, and that's why I keep on talking about ASEAN diplomacy and all of that. Thank you very much, Justice Carpio, for this fantastic conversation. I appreciate my bata na gustong pumasok sa doors. I have to respond. Julia, mi amor, okay. Thank you so much, Justice Carpio, for this fantastic conversation. As always, is there something you want to share with folks? Is there something you want them to read? Yung letter po nyo kay President Marcos Jr. regarding Pogo?
Yes, we have come out with an open letter, and I think Malacanang has taken note of that. And hopefully, this Monday, the president will address that.
Looking forward to that. And if not, awayin natin si BBM ng Monday. As always, thank you so much, mabuhay po kayo,
Okay.
Justice Carpio. Thank you again for your flexibility and all. We were supposed to have this kahapon, but ang hirap ng time zone kasi Justice is 6 hours behind, so baka hindi ko maabutan ng time. So I really appreciate this and hope we can catch you next week after Sona to see kung natuwa kayo or hindi. Otherwise, awayin natin si BBM. On that note, thank you very much.
Okay,
God bless po.
bye.
Mabuhay po kayo.
Bye.
Salamat po.